Welcome to another RRPS online training. Today, we'll be learning how to address student behavior by examining the importance of having positive behavioral support, by knowing how to develop functional behavioral assessments and behavioral intervention plans. My name is Susan James. I am a licensed independent social worker employed with the Rio Rancho Public School District. This training will be a brief overview of Functional Behavioral Assessments, FBA, and Behavior Intervention Plans, BIP. This instruction is best suited for administrators and other professionals who want a general knowledge base about positively addressing student behavior. Ancillary personnel, site specialists, counselors, 504 coordinators, and SAT team members will want a more in-depth training. To arrange for additional training at your school site, call me at 892-7222, extension 105, or email me at the address on this slide. Accompanying this presentation is an Addressing Student Behavior Manual, which may help answer questions that arise. For additional clarification or assistance after taking this training, please contact me. Today, we're going to discuss the following areas. First, the reasons for conducting an FBA. Then, we'll try to demystify the causes of problem behavior. We'll discuss the interrelatedness of PBS, which is Positive Behavioral Supports, FBA, and BIP, along with a review of the key points in the manual, a brief discussion about IDEA as it relates to student behavior, why we need to do an FBA and a BIP, what the components of an FBA are, consent issues, and resources you can use for more assistance. Before we go further, here is the fine print. Please take a moment to read. This training will continue in just a moment. As we all know, when it comes to dealing with student behavior, it can feel like being lost in the Bermuda Triangle, swirling in endless circles, repeating the same course over and over. Most of us at one time or another has said in exasperation, "I've tried everything I can think of. I don't know what else I can do." Behavior and what to do about it can certainly be a mystery. For example, what is the problem? When does the behavior occur? Why does the student exhibit this behavior? Sometimes these questions stump us. No matter how often or how hard we try to correct the behaviors, nothing seems to work. Unfortunately, too many of us rely on myths to deal with problem behavior. As a result, it doesn't disappear. Let's explore just a few of these myths. Here are 5 statements. Which ones are myths? The first 4 are myths. The last one is true. We'll be replacing these and other myths about dealing with problem behavior with clear, proven, scientifically researched approaches. Imagine for a moment you hear a grinding noise coming from your car. Obviously, getting mad and kicking the car is unlikely to get the results you want. So, you take it to a mechanic. Think about how you would respond if the mechanic just began to try various things without attempting to understand the situation and diagnose the cause of the problem. When thinking about problem behavior, this is why a functional behavioral assessment is done. To effectively modify problem behavior, you must first understand circumstances and the possible causes for it. These are some of the questions you need to ask to diagnose a problem behavior. What is the problem behavior? When does it occur? What does the student gain or avoid? What strategies have been effective and ineffective? What factors can be manipulated? What replacement behavior is desired? Obviously, the trial and error approach is neither an efficient nor a particularly successful way to solve a problem, whether it's a noise in your car or a problem behavior. You need a plan. There has been immense scientific work done around the topic of the behavior triangle. It is amazing how supposedly mysterious and baffling things become matter of fact when scientifically investigated. It is scientific research that has provided us with the tools we need to successfully address student behavior. First, we have school-wide positive behavior supports, PBS. This is a systems approach to building capacity of schools to educate all students, especially those with problem behaviors. PBS emphasizes prevention of problem behavior. PBS is state-funded initiative and some of our schools participate in this project. Next, we have the Functional Behavioral Assessment, or FBA. This tool is used to define and diagnose the problem behavior in terms of function, or the purpose the behavior serves for the student. Finally, there is the Behavior Intervention Plan, or BIP. This is something like a prescription, which spells out exactly what the student and all adults who interact with him or her are expected to do to support new and positive behavior. You may be wondering why we would even need formalized approaches such as an FBA or BIP, or for that matter, a manual to explain it all. Well, that is because the term problem behavior has drastically changed in the last 50 years. For example, a recent CBS News report showed that in 1950, these were teachers' biggest concerns: gum chewing, cutting in line, not raising the hand, running, and writing in books. By contrast, today's teacher concerns often involve assault, weapons, and drugs. The National School Safety Center reports that more than 28,000 students and 5,000 teachers are physically attacked in our schools each month. More than half of all crime in the United States is committed by 5 to 7% of youth between the ages of 10 and 20. Fortunately, the New Mexico Public Education Department, Special Education Bureau, has prepared a document that can assist all our state's educators with how to address problem behavior. Be assured that in this manual you are getting guidance based on national experts in behavior and psychology. As you can see in the table of contents, it is packed with practical and useful information, including guidance from the experts, general information, instructions for different procedures, tools you can use right away, strategies for different situations, and forms to use for assessment and documentation. Rio Rancho Public Schools already has the FBA and BIP forms available for our use on our intranet site. The first half shows you step by step how to conduct an FBA and how to interpret the results. The second half shows you how to develop a BIP. In the appendix, you'll find strategies for effective behavior management, plus insights into and guidance for dealing with the 10 most common problem categories for students of all ages. If you want, you can pause this training now, click the pause button below, and take a look at the book. Everything you need to know about addressing student behavior is here for you to reference anytime you need it. Click the pause button again to restart this training. Yes, there is paperwork involved in this process, but there is no avoiding that in order to do the assessment and behavioral plan correctly. More importantly, specific information must be collected, documented, analyzed, and reviewed for the process to be effective and beneficial. As you can see, there is a reason for all behavior. The reason meets an underlying need the individual has. The whole school community will benefit from establishing and maintaining an atmosphere that promotes positive behavior while providing support to teachers and students for modifying behavior at the root cause. It is important to realize that the motives for the behavior are the cause, and the behavior is the result. To effectively change behavior, the cause must be identified. Trying to suppress or control behavior doesn't permit change to happen. We need to focus on identifying and teaching replacement behaviors. The object of IDEA is not to arbitrarily mandate change, but to provide a school environment conducive to the education of all students, including those with disabilities. Though mandated by law for students with disabilities, intervention in the manner described in the guide can change the lives of students with or without disabilities, even those with the most challenging behavior problems. IDEA stands for Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. The process of addressing behavior through an FBA and BIP produces results for any student. IDEA is the law that governs special education and requires schools to take certain steps to address behaviors that interfere with learning as a part of a student's IEP. Refer to pages 5 to 9 of your manual to see key points. If you'll turn to page 7, you'll find the rights and requirements under the IDEA. On page 9, you will find the key points of law regarding students with disabilities. Take a few minutes to review this information. You might be wondering why Congress, in the case of a student with a disability, would mandate the use of an FBA and BIP. Well, you may have observed teachers addressing behavior by manipulating events that follow the behavior, such as a verbal reprimand, isolation, or threats of punishment. This may stop the behavior for the moment, but does not address the cause for the behavior. Behaviorists have found that students will change their behavior only when it is clear that a different action will more effectively and efficiently result in the desired outcome. This is a critical and powerful statement and the key to addressing problem behavior.
Functional assessment helps educators understand what function the behavior serves for the student. A behavioral intervention plan provides a concrete proposal for replacing undesirable behavior in a proactive manner that addresses both the source of the problem and the problem itself.
Take a minute to pause this training and review the flowchart on page 10 of your manual. This will give you an overview of the complete process of addressing student behavior through an FBA and BIP and help you answer these questions. Welcome back. Looking for the answer to these questions? Number 1. An FBA is warranted when you realize the behavior is interfering with the learning of the student or that of others. If you want to determine if the behavior is related to an exceptionality or if the student behavior is dangerous. Number 2. The term summarizes the steps in the process of conducting an FBA. Number 3. The process is complete when the target behavior is successfully modified or replaced. Okay, let's take a moment to understand what a functional behavioral assessment is all about. Here's what an FBA is, what it may reveal, and what it provides. First, An FBA is data and information gathered from school records, interviews, classroom observations, and other sources. Second, it may reveal patterns of behavior or triggers that lead to inappropriate behavior. Third, it provides an understanding of what leads a student to act inappropriately. So why do we need to do an FBA? An FBA is a way to study problem behavior and find solutions. It also helps us to look beyond the behavior itself and identify the function of the behavior. The FBA also helps us to address behaviors that do not readily respond to intervention or classroom management techniques and behaviors that impede learning or are ongoing. The FBA is the foundation for our assessment. The FBA is used when behaviors are not responding to classroom management techniques, are ongoing, and impede the learning of the student or others. Obviously, we cannot and do not need to conduct an FBA for everyone. Most behavior is addressed and resolved with good classroom management and parent communication. Knowing the requirements under the IDEA is crucial. Take a moment to refer again to page 9 in your manual for these requirements. FBAs are not just for students receiving special education or related services. It is strongly recommended and good practice to do one for any student whose behavior warrants an intervention plan. It is best practice to conduct an FBA before a student's behavior leads to disciplinary action. Responding proactively to behavioral challenges by using positive behavioral supports, the FBA and BIP, may actually eliminate the need for disciplinary action. Since an FBA can be done for any student, who is responsible? For a regular education student, the Student Assistance Team or the counselor handles the FBA. For a 504 student, the 504 team facilitates it. For a student with a disability, it's the IEP team. The IEP team must do the planning for an FBA within the framework of an IEP meeting, which includes the parent and student, if appropriate. As part of their planning, the IEP team may decide that selected members of the school team will constitute the FBA team and conduct the FBA, or they may decide that it is more appropriate for other staff members to do it. Complex problems may require using the school psychologist and school social worker as consultants. In Rio Rancho Public Schools, the case managers are typically identified as the lead person of the team. Social workers may be identified as the lead person if the student receives those services as per their IEP. Look at page 32 of your manual. There is a note in the italics about halfway down the page that answers this question. Essentially, parent consent is required for any evaluation or re-evaluation. If the FBA team seeks more than what already exists in records, such as new tests, rating scales, interviews, etc., then consent is required. School personnel can informally observe the student without consent. An observation by an outside specialist requires consent. If in doubt, obtain consent. Here's the answer. The school can still do the FBA, we just have to use existing information. Remember, if a school has an obligation to do an FBA as per requirements noted in your manual, we must go ahead with the FBA with or without parent consent. Without consent, we use existing information only. These manuals have been developed and provided to assist us. Since conducting an FBA and developing a BIP may fall on the Student Assistance Team or the IEP team, you should know there are separate technical assistance manuals put out by the New Mexico Public Education Department for each. For SAT, it's the Student Assistance Team and the three-tiered model of student intervention. For the IEP, it's developing quality IEPs. In each manual, you will find a wealth of information from laws to best practices and from forms to flowcharts. That concludes this presentation. Please take a few minutes to complete the following quiz in order to ensure that you get credit for taking this training. Remember, if you start the quiz, be sure to complete it and not exit in the middle. If you happen to get a failing score, you can retake the training. Just read the questions and take your time choosing your answers. Here we go.